Maya was having one of those mornings. You know, the kind where everything that could go wrong does go wrong. Her alarm didn't go off. She spilled toothpaste on her favorite shirt, and now she was running late for her weekly team meeting. She grabbed her coffee mug, nearly tripping over her cat on the way to her home office, and practically threw herself into her desk chair. Okay, just breathe, she muttered to herself, opening her laptop with one hand while taking a sip of coffee with the other. The clock on her screen showed she was already 7 minutes late. Her team was probably wondering where she was. Maya quickly opened her calendar, found the Zoom link for the marketing meeting, and clicked it without a second thought. The screen loaded, and Maya quickly unmuted herself, ready to apologize for being late. But the words died in her throat. Instead of seeing her boss Lisa and the 4 other people from her small marketing team, her screen was filled with what looked like at least 30 people. And these weren't just any people. They were all dressed in expensive suits and blazers, sitting in what appeared to be a massive conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city skyline. Maya's stomach dropped. This was definitely not her team meeting. Her first instinct was to leave immediately. Her mouse cursor hovered over the red leave button, her face burning with embarrassment. But before she could click, a voice stopped her cold. "Don't go." The voice was deep and authoritative, the kind that made you stop whatever you were doing and pay attention. Maya's eyes darted across the screen, trying to figure out who had spoken. Then she saw him. Sitting at the head of the virtual table, in what was clearly the main position, was a man she recognized instantly. Ethan Rivers, the CEO of Rivers Tech. Her heart started pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it through her microphone. Rivers Tech was the huge company that had bought out the small startup where Maya worked about 6 months ago. She'd never met anyone from the parent company before. Her little team had been allowed to keep operating pretty much independently, doing their own thing in their own corner of the business. And now here she was, accidentally crashing what was obviously a very important executive meeting. "I'm so sorry," Maya stammered, her voice shaking. "I clicked the wrong link. I was trying to join my team meeting and I must have clicked on the wrong one in my calendar. I'll just go and—" "I said don't go," Ethan repeated. And this time Maya could see his face clearly on the screen. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe in his late 30s, with dark hair and intense eyes that seemed to look right through the camera and into her soul. "Stay, I was waiting for you." Maya blinked. Waiting for her? That didn't make any sense. She'd never met this man in her life. She glanced at the other faces on the screen, and they all looked just as confused as she felt. Several executives were whispering to each other, and one woman was frantically typing something, probably trying to figure out who Maya was and how she'd gotten into their meeting. "I'm sorry, sir, but I think there's been a mistake," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm Maya Chen. I work in the marketing department of the small division that used to be called Brightspark before the acquisition. I really think I should leave and let you continue with your meeting." "I know exactly who you are, Maya," Ethan said, and there was something in his tone that made her shiver, not in a scary way, but in a way that suggested there was much more to the situation than she understood. "And I'm telling you to stay. We're in the middle of our quarterly strategic planning session, and I think your perspective would be valuable." This had to be some kind of joke. Maya looked at her own video thumbnail in the corner of the screen. She was wearing a casual sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was pretty sure she still had a smudge of toothpaste on her collar. Meanwhile, everyone else looked like they'd stepped out of a business magazine. "But I'm not prepared," Maya protested weakly. "I don't even know what you're discussing." "Then it's a good thing we're just getting started," Ethan said. He leaned forward slightly, and Maya noticed that he had a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Consider this an opportunity, Maya. How often does someone get to accidentally stumble into a room full of executives?" One of the other executives, an older man with gray hair and glasses, cleared his throat. "Ethan, perhaps we should continue," Ethan interrupted smoothly. "Maya, why don't you turn on your camera properly and settle in? I have a feeling this meeting is about to get very interesting." Maya didn't know what to do. Part of her wanted to make an excuse and leave immediately. This was beyond awkward. But another part of her, the ambitious part that had always pushed her to take risks, was curious. Why was the CEO of a massive tech company insisting that she stay in a meeting she'd crashed by accident? And what had he meant when he said he was waiting for her? She took a deep breath and adjusted her laptop camera. Okay, she said quietly. I'll stay. Excellent, Ethan said, and his smile widened just a fraction. Now let's continue. We were discussing the rollout strategy for our new product line. Mitchell, you were presenting the timeline. As the gray-haired man started talking about launch dates and market analysis, Maya tried to focus on what he was saying, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something strange was happening. Why did Ethan keep glancing at her video thumbnail? And why did several of the other executives keep looking at him with confused expressions, as if they were trying to figure out what their boss was up to? About 20 minutes into the meeting, Ethan did something that shocked everyone. He stopped Mitchell mid-sentence and turned his attention directly to Maya. Maya, you've been quiet. What do you think about the timeline Mitchell just presented? From a marketing perspective, does a 6-month rollout make sense for a product in this category? Every face on the screen turned to look at her video. Maya's mouth went dry. She hadn't expected to actually participate. She'd thought she would just sit quietly in the background until the meeting ended. But now the CEO was asking her opinion in front of all these important executives, and everyone was waiting for her answer. Maya's mind raced. She thought about the timeline Mitchell had presented. She thought about the market research she'd been doing for her own small team. And then she thought about something her grandmother used to say. When life throws you into the deep end, you might as well swim. Honestly, Maya said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded, I think 6 months is too long. In this market, with the competition moving as fast as they are, you'll lose momentum. Your early adopters will move on to something else, and your launch will feel outdated before it even happens. The room went silent. Maya immediately regretted opening her mouth. Who was she to question their strategy? But then she noticed something. Ethan was smiling. Not just a polite smile, but a genuine expression of satisfaction, as if she'd just said exactly what he'd been hoping to hear. Interesting, he said, leaning back in his chair. Tell me more. Maya couldn't believe what was happening. For the next hour, she found herself actually participating in a high-level executive meeting. And the strangest part, Ethan kept asking for her opinion. Not just once or twice, but consistently throughout the discussion. He wanted to know what she thought about their customer engagement strategy. He asked her perspective on their social media presence. He even had her weigh in on their pricing model. At first, Maya was terrified. Every time Ethan directed a question at her, she felt like she might throw up. But gradually, something shifted. She realized that her answers were making sense. More than that, people were actually listening to her. When she suggested they needed to focus more on video content, because that's what younger customers were responding to, 3 executives started taking notes. When she pointed out that their competitor had just launched a similar product at a lower price point, the whole room went silent and someone said they needed to revisit their numbers. The weirdest part was watching Ethan. Every time Maya spoke, he would lean forward slightly, his eyes fixed on her video thumbnail like she was the only person in the meeting. It was intense and a little unsettling, but also strangely thrilling. She'd never had anyone pay attention to her ideas like this before. When the meeting finally ended 2 hours later, Maya felt like she'd run a marathon. Her coffee had gone cold and she had filled 3 pages of her notebook with scribbled thoughts and ideas. As people started logging off, saying their goodbyes and great meeting everyone, Maya reached for her mouse to leave too. Maya, can you stay on for a moment? Ethan's voice stopped her again. Her heart jumped. The other executives were leaving one by one, their video squares disappearing from the screen until it was just the 2 of them. Maya suddenly felt very aware of how casual she looked compared to Ethan in his expensive-looking suit. Sure, she managed to say, even though her brain was screaming at her to come up with an excuse to leave. Ethan waited until the last person had left the meeting. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Not the professional CEO smile he'd been wearing during the meeting, but a real, genuine smile that made him look younger and much less intimidating. That was impressive, he said. I'm sorry, what? Maya wasn't sure she'd heard him correctly. Your contributions today, the way you think about market positioning and customer behavior, it's exactly the kind of fresh perspective this company needs. Ethan leaned back in his chair, looking more relaxed now that it was just the 2 of them. Can I ask you something? How long have you been working in marketing? About 5 years, Maya said, still trying to process what was happening. I started right out of college at a small agency, then joined Brightspark 3 years ago. Before the acquisition, I mean. And you enjoy it? I love it, Maya said honestly. I love figuring out what makes people connect with a brand. It's like solving a puzzle, you know? You have to understand psychology and data and creativity all at the same time. Ethan nodded slowly, like she'd just confirmed something he'd been thinking. I've been reviewing the personnel files from all our recent acquisitions, looking for people with real talent, not just good credentials. People who actually understand what we're trying to build here. Maya felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. Where was this going? Your work on the Bright Spark campaigns caught my attention months ago, Ethan continued. The way you repositioned that failing product line and turned it into one of your best sellers? That was brilliant. But seeing you in action today, hearing how you think on your feet and challenge assumptions, that confirmed what I already suspected. Which is? Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. That you're wasted in that small division. I want you on my executive innovation team, here at headquarters in Seattle, working directly with me on company-wide strategy. For a moment, Maya thought she'd misheard him. Then she realized she hadn't, and her mind went completely blank. The CEO of a massive tech company was offering her a job on his executive team. Her. The girl who'd accidentally crashed his meeting because she couldn't even click the right Zoom link. I don't know what to say, Maya stammered. You don't have to say anything right now, Ethan said. I know this is sudden, but I want you to think about it seriously. This is a real offer. You'd be leading major initiatives, shaping the direction of the company. Your salary would triple at minimum, and you'd have resources and support you've never had access to before. Maya's head was spinning. Triple her salary? Leading company-wide initiatives? It sounded like a dream, but something nagged at her. Something about the way Ethan was looking at her through the screen. There was an intensity there that went beyond professional interest. Can I ask you something? Maya said, surprising herself with her boldness. Why me? I mean, you have thousands of employees. Surely there are people with more experience, better qualifications. People who didn't just randomly crash your meeting this morning. Something flickered across Ethan's face. For just a second, he looked almost uncomfortable, like she'd touched on something he wasn't ready to discuss. But then the expression was gone, replaced by his usual composed demeanor. Let's just say I have good instincts about people, he said, and my instincts tell me you're special. The way he said the word special made Maya's skin tingle. This wasn't just about business. She was sure of it now, but she couldn't figure out what was really going on. I need time to think about this, Maya said. This is a huge decision. I'd have to move across the country. Leave my team, my apartment, everything familiar. Of course, Ethan said immediately. Take a week. Think it over. Talk to whoever you need to talk to. But Maya? He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer, more personal. I really hope you say yes. I think we could do great things together. After they ended the call, Maya sat at her desk in complete shock for a solid 10 minutes. Then she did what any reasonable person would do in this situation. She called her best friend. You're not going to believe what just happened to me, Maya said the moment her friend answered. She explained everything. The wrong Zoom link, the executive meeting, Ethan's strange insistence that she stay, and then the job offer. Her friend listened to the whole story without interrupting, which Maya appreciated because she needed to get it all out. Okay, that's insane, her friend said when Maya finally finished. But also kind of romantic. Like, this powerful CEO is basically offering you your dream job. What are you going to do? I have no idea, Maya admitted. Part of me wants to jump at it. I mean, this is the kind of opportunity people dream about. But something feels off. The way he was looking at me, the way he said he'd been reviewing my work. It's like there's something he's not telling me. So find out what it is, her friend suggested. You're a marketer. You know how to research. Look him up. Dig into his background. Figure out what's really going on here before you make any decisions. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Ethan's words, his expressions, the way the whole day had unfolded. It was almost midnight when she finally gave in and opened her laptop. She pulled up a search engine and typed in Ethan's name. What she found over the next few hours would change everything. Maya started with the basic stuff. Business articles, interviews, company information. Ethan had built Rivers Tech from nothing, starting in his parents' garage when he was just 23. The company had grown explosively, and now it was worth billions. He was known for being brilliant but demanding, someone who pushed his teams hard but also rewarded success generously. But then Maya dug deeper. She found old blog posts, archived articles, photos from tech conferences and startup competitions from years ago, and that's when she saw it. A photo from 7 years ago at a university startup competition. There was a younger version of Ethan standing on a stage holding a trophy. And right there next to him, helping to hold up a banner in the background, was Maya herself. Her hands started shaking as she stared at the image on her screen. She remembered that day now. She'd been a volunteer at the event during her senior year of college. But she had no memory of actually meeting Ethan or talking to him. There had been hundreds of people there that day, unless she had talked to him and just forgotten about it. Maya stared at the photo on her laptop screen until her eyes hurt. It was definitely her, 7 years younger with longer hair and a bright volunteer t-shirt. And there was Ethan, looking proud and excited as he held his trophy. They were in the same photo at the same event on the same day, but Maya had absolutely no memory of meeting him or talking to him. She searched for more information about that competition, reading through old blog posts and event recaps. Apparently, Ethan's startup pitch that day had been about a revolutionary app for connecting freelance workers with small businesses. The judges had loved it and he'd won first place. That app had eventually evolved into the foundation of Rivers Tech. Maya spent the entire weekend obsessing over this discovery. She barely ate, barely slept. She kept coming back to the same questions. Had they actually talked that day? Had something happened that she'd forgotten? And if so, why did Ethan remember her when she didn't remember him? By Monday morning, Maya had made a decision. She needed answers, and the only person who could give them to her was Ethan himself. She sent him a message asking if they could meet in person to discuss the job offer. To her surprise, he responded within minutes, suggesting coffee that afternoon at a cafe near her apartment. Maya changed her outfit 3 times before settling on something professional, but not too formal. She arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, her stomach tied in knots. When Ethan walked in exactly on time, wearing jeans and a casual button-down shirt instead of a suit, Maya almost didn't recognize him. He looked more human somehow, less like an intimidating CEO and more like a regular person. "Thanks for meeting me," Maya said as he sat down across from her with his coffee. "Of course, I'm glad you reached out." Ethan's eyes searched her face, and Maya had the distinct feeling he knew exactly why she'd asked for this meeting. "Have you been thinking about the offer?" "I have," Maya said carefully. "But first I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Ethan's expression shifted slightly. He set down his coffee cup and gave her his full attention. "Okay." Maya pulled out her phone and showed him the photo she'd found. "This is from 7 years ago. A startup competition at the state university. That's you and that's me in the background. I was volunteering there that day." Ethan looked at the photo for a long moment, and Maya watched as something changed in his face. His professional mask slipped, and underneath it she saw something vulnerable and real. "Yes?" he said quietly. "I remember." "I don't," Maya admitted. "I have no memory of meeting you or talking to you that day. But clearly you remember me, because you knew exactly who I was when I crashed your meeting last week. So I need you to tell me the truth. What's really going on here? Did we actually talk that day?" Ethan was quiet for so long that Maya thought he might not answer. He stared down at his coffee, his jaw tight, like he was wrestling with some internal decision. Finally, he looked up at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Yes, we talked," he said. "It was after the competition. I was riding high on winning, feeling invincible. You know how it is when you're young and you think one trophy means you've made it. You were cleaning up, collecting trash, and folding chairs. I started bragging to you about my win, about how my idea was going to change everything." Maya leaned forward, fascinated despite herself. "What did I say?" A small smile crossed Ethan's face, but it was tinged with something bittersweet. "You congratulated me, but then you asked me a question that stopped me cold. You asked if I'd actually talked to any freelance workers about what they needed, or if I'd just assumed I knew what would work. You said it so nicely, so gently, but it hit me like a truck because you were right. I'd built this whole pitch around what I thought people wanted, not what they actually needed." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. That did sound like something she would say. Even back in college, she'd been obsessed with understanding what customers really wanted. "You spent 20 minutes talking to me," Ethan continued, and his voice had gotten softer, more personal. You weren't trying to be mean or burst my bubble. You were genuinely trying to help. You told me about your mom, how she was a freelance graphic designer and the struggles she faced finding consistent work. You gave me specific examples of what would actually be useful, and then you said something I've never forgotten. What did I say? Maya whispered. You said that the best ideas don't come from assuming you're smarter than everyone else. They come from listening to people's real problems and caring enough to solve them. Ethan's eyes locked onto hers. That conversation changed everything for me. I went home that night and completely rebuilt my business model. I interviewed hundreds of freelancers. I actually listened to what they needed. And that's what made Rivers Tech successful. Not my original idea, but what I learned from you. Maya felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She didn't know what to say. The fact that she'd had such an impact on someone's life and didn't even remember it was overwhelming. I tried to find you afterward, Ethan said. I went back to the university, asked around, but I only knew your first name. You'd graduated and moved away. Over the years, I thought about that conversation more times than I can count. Every time I made a major business decision, I'd think about what you said, about listening, about caring. And then my company got acquired, Maya said, the pieces finally clicking into place. And then I saw your name on the acquisition list, Ethan confirmed. I couldn't believe it. After all these years, there you were. I read everything you'd ever worked on. Every campaign, every strategy document, every presentation, and I saw that same quality in all of it. You still care about understanding people. You still listen. Maya sat back in her chair, her mind reeling. So the Zoom meeting. That wasn't really an accident, was it? Ethan had the decency to look guilty. Not entirely. I had my assistant send you the link to the executive meeting along with your regular team meeting link. I thought maybe you'd click on it by mistake. I know it was manipulative, and I'm sorry for that. But I needed to see you, to talk to you, and I didn't know how else to make it happen without it being weird. This is already weird, Maya pointed out, but she couldn't help the small smile that tugged at her lips. I know, Ethan said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Look, I'm not good at this kind of thing. I'm good at business, at strategy, at building companies, but personal stuff, I'm terrible at it. The truth is, I've thought about you for 7 years. You changed my life with one conversation and you don't even remember it. And when I finally found you again, I panicked and came up with this elaborate plan to get you in a room with me. A virtual room, Maya corrected. A virtual room, Ethan agreed with a slight laugh. The point is, yes, I manipulated the situation to meet you, but everything I said about the job offer is real. You are incredibly talented. You do deserve that position, and I do think we could do amazing things together. But I understand if this is all too much. If you want to turn down the offer and never talk to me again, I'll understand. Maya looked at him, really looked at him. This wasn't the confident CEO she'd seen in the meeting last week. This was just a guy who'd been carrying a memory around for 7 years and didn't know what to do with it now that he'd found her again. I don't want to never talk to you again, Maya said slowly, but I need some honesty moving forward. Complete honesty. No more manipulation, no more secret plans. If we're going to work together or whatever this is going to be, I need to be able to trust you. You have my word, Ethan said immediately. Complete transparency from now on. Okay then. Maya took a deep breath. I'll take the job. But I have conditions. Name them. First, I want everything in writing. The position, the salary, the expectations. I want it official and professional. Maya counted off on her fingers. Second, at work, we keep things strictly professional. I need to prove to your team and to myself that I earned this position. Not that I got it because of some connection from 7 years ago. Agreed, Ethan said, nodding. And third, Maya continued, her heart beating faster. Outside of work, I want to get to know you. The real you, not the CEO version. Because honestly, this whole story is either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the most concerning, and I need to figure out which one it is. Ethan's face broke into a genuine smile, the kind that reached his eyes and made him look almost boyish. I can work with those conditions. 2 months after that coffee shop conversation, Maya found herself standing in front of a tall glass building in downtown Seattle, with 2 suitcases and a racing heart. The move had happened faster than she'd expected. 1 week she was in her small apartment across the country, and the next she was signing a lease on a modern loft within walking distance of Rivers Tech headquarters. Her first day was terrifying. The executive floor was nothing like her old office. Everything was sleek and expensive looking, from the marble floors to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city. Maya's new office was 3 times the size of her old cubicle, with her own assistant and a door that actually closed. But the hardest part wasn't the fancy office or the impressive view. It was the people. The other executives on Ethan's team weren't exactly welcoming. During her first team meeting, Maya could feel their eyes on her, judging, questioning. She knew what they were thinking. Who was this girl who came out of nowhere and suddenly had a seat at the table? A woman named Victoria, who'd been with the company for 12 years, was especially cold. She barely acknowledged Maya's presence during meetings and would often talk over her when she tried to contribute ideas. Another executive, Robert, made passive-aggressive comments about fresh perspectives and learning curves that made Maya want to sink into her chair. True to his word, Ethan kept things completely professional at work. He treated Maya the same way he treated everyone else on the team, maybe even a bit more strictly. He challenged her ideas, pushed back on her proposals, and expected her to defend every decision with solid data. At first, Maya appreciated it. She didn't want anyone thinking she was getting special treatment. But after a particularly brutal meeting where Ethan had torn apart her marketing strategy in front of the whole team, Maya started to wonder if she'd made a huge mistake. That evening, she got a text from Ethan. "Dinner at Giuseppe's at 7? We need to talk." Maya's stomach clenched. Was he going to tell her this wasn't working out? That she wasn't ready for this position? She showed up to the restaurant 15 minutes early, too anxious to wait at home. When Ethan arrived, he looked tired. He'd loosened his tie and had shadows under his eyes that Maya hadn't noticed before. "Before you say anything," Maya started as soon as he sat down, "I know today was rough, but I can do better. I can work harder, put in more hours, whatever it takes." Ethan looked confused. "Maya, what are you talking about?" "The meeting today. You completely destroyed my proposal. I thought maybe you were regretting hiring me, or thinking I'm not cut out for this level." Something shifted in Ethan's expression. He reached across the table, and for the first time since Maya had started working there, he touched her hand gently. "That's not what this dinner is about at all. I pushed back on your proposal because there were legitimate holes in the data. It had nothing to do with whether you belong on the team. You absolutely do. Then why did you want to meet?" Maya asked, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. "Because I wanted to apologize," Ethan said, sitting back. "I've been so focused on making sure no one accuses me of favoritism that I haven't been checking in with you about how you're actually doing. Moving across the country, starting a new position, dealing with executives who probably aren't being very welcoming, that's a lot to handle alone." Maya felt unexpected tears prick at her eyes. She'd been holding everything together so tightly, trying to prove herself that she hadn't realized how much she needed someone to just acknowledge that it was hard. "Victoria hates me," Maya admitted. "Robert thinks I'm a joke, and half the team doesn't even bother learning my name. They just call me the new girl, like I'm some intern who stumbled into the wrong floor." "I know," Ethan said quietly, "and I should have warned you it would be like this. When you're good at what you do and you rise quickly, people get threatened. They want to believe that success only comes from years of slowly climbing the ladder. Someone like you who skips steps because you're talented, it makes them uncomfortable." "So what do I do?" Maya asked. "How do I make them respect me?" "You keep doing exactly what you're doing. You show up, you do excellent work, and you don't apologize for being good at your job." Ethan's eyes were intense now, that same look he'd had during their first Zoom meeting. "But outside of work, you let yourself be human. You let yourself struggle and doubt and feel overwhelmed, at least with me." Over the next few months, that became their pattern. At work, Ethan was her boss, demanding and exacting and never letting her slide on anything. But outside of work, usually over dinners or late-night phone calls, he became something else. A friend, a confidant, someone who actually understood the pressure she was under. They talked about everything. Ethan told her about growing up poor, about watching his parents struggle to make ends meet, about the chip on his shoulder that had driven him to build his empire. Maya told him about being the daughter of immigrants, about the pressure to succeed, about feeling like she had to be twice as good to get half the recognition. The more time they spent together, the more Maya realized she was falling for him. It wasn't just his success or his intelligence. It was the way he remembered small details about her life. The way he made her laugh when she was stressed. The way he looked at her sometimes like she was the most interesting person in the world. But Maya kept those feelings locked down tight. She'd set boundaries for a reason, and she wasn't going to be the one to cross them. Then, 3 months into her new position, everything fell apart. Maya was working late one evening, finalizing a presentation for the board meeting the next day, when Victoria walked into her office without knocking. The older woman's face was cold and angry. "I know what's going on," Victoria said without preamble. Maya looked up from her laptop, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You and Ethan. I've seen the way he looks at you. The way you two disappear at the same time for meetings that aren't on anyone's calendar. The special treatment you get." "I don't get special treatment," Maya said, her voice sharp. "If anything, Ethan is harder on me than anyone else on the team." "Right," Victoria said with a bitter laugh. "That's a convenient story. But I've been here for 12 years. I've worked my way up from an entry-level position through sheer determination and skill. And then you show up out of nowhere, with barely any experience at this level, and suddenly you're sitting in executive meetings making 6 figures. We both know why that is." Maya stood up, anger flooding through her. "You don't know anything about me or why I'm here." "I know enough," Victoria shot back. "And I'm not the only one who's noticed. There's talk, Maya. People are questioning whether this entire division should trust leadership that makes decisions based on personal relationships rather than merit." "Get out of my office," Maya said, her voice shaking. Victoria left, but her words lingered like poison. Maya tried to focus on her presentation, but she couldn't. All she could think about was the truth behind Victoria's accusations. Yes, there was something between her and Ethan. Yes, their relationship was complicated and personal and maybe inappropriate given their professional dynamic. But Maya had earned her position. She knew she had. She'd been working 70-hour weeks producing results, bringing in new clients. Her work spoke for itself, didn't it? That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept replaying Victoria's words, and the more she thought about it, the more she realized the other woman was right about one thing. There was talk. Maya had noticed the whispers in the hallway, the way conversations stopped when she walked into a room. She'd just been trying so hard to ignore it, to focus on her work and prove herself. But what if she couldn't prove herself? What if everyone would always see her as the girl who got ahead because the CEO had a crush on her? The next morning, Maya walked into the board meeting exhausted and on edge. She delivered her presentation flawlessly, answering every question with confidence and data. The board members seemed impressed. But when she looked around the table, she saw skepticism on several faces. She saw Victoria's cold smile. She saw Robert's dismissive expression, and then everything got worse. After the meeting, as people were filing out, one of the board members, an older man named Douglas, approached Ethan. Maya was gathering her materials, but she was close enough to overhear. "That young woman," Douglas said, not bothering to lower his voice much. "Maya, she's impressive, but there's been some concerning chatter. Questions about conflict of interest, about whether personal relationships are influencing business decisions." Maya's blood ran cold. She looked up and caught Ethan's eye across the room. He looked furious, but not at her. At Douglas, at the situation, at the whispers that had apparently reached even the board level. "Maya earned her position through talent and hard work," Ethan said firmly. "Any suggestion otherwise is baseless gossip." "Perhaps," Douglas said. "But perception matters, Ethan, you know that. I'd suggest you be very careful about how this looks going forward. The company's reputation is at stake." Maya grabbed her things and left the room as quickly as she could without running. She made it to her office, closed the door, and finally let herself break down. This was a disaster. She'd worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and now her reputation was in question because of whispers and assumptions. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "My office now, please." Maya wiped her eyes, straightened her jacket, and walked down the hall to Ethan's massive corner office. When she entered, he was standing by the window, his back to her, his shoulders tense. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Maya did, her heart pounding. When Ethan finally turned to face her, the look in his eyes made her breath catch. It wasn't the professional CEO look or even the gentle friend look. It was something raw and desperate and real. "I'm sorry," he said. "This is my fault." Maya stood frozen in Ethan's office, waiting for him to continue. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they'd been avoiding for months. "This isn't your fault," Maya said finally. I made the choice to take this job. I knew it would be complicated. But I didn't prepare you for how bad it could get, Ethan said, frustration clear in his voice. I should have anticipated this. Should have protected you better. I don't need protecting, Maya shot back more sharply than she intended. I need to be able to do my job without everyone questioning whether I earned it. And right now I don't know if that's possible. Ethan moved closer and Maya could see the conflict in his eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe I should resign. Go somewhere else where I can build my reputation without all this baggage. No. Ethan's response was immediate and forceful. You're not running away from this. We're going to fix it. How? Maya felt tears threatening again and hated herself for it. How do we fix people thinking I slept my way into this position? How do we fix a board member questioning your judgment? How do we fix any of this without one of us leaving? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he said something Maya didn't expect. We proved them wrong, publicly and undeniably. Over the next week, Maya barely saw Ethan except in meetings. But she noticed him working with the legal team, having closed-door conversations with board members and spending hours reviewing files and documents. She had no idea what he was planning, and when she tried to ask, he just told her to trust him. Then, on a Friday afternoon, Ethan called an emergency all-hands company meeting. The entire staff, from interns to executives, gathered in the main auditorium. Maya sat in the front row with the other executives, her stomach in knots. Victoria sat 3 seats away, her expression smug, like she thought this meeting was going to end with Maya's resignation. Ethan took the stage, and the room fell silent. He looked different than Maya had ever seen him. Not angry, but determined, powerful, like he was about to go to war. Thank you all for coming on short notice, Ethan began. I'm calling this meeting because there's been some talk circulating about one of our executives, and I want to address it head on. Maya Chen joined our leadership team 4 months ago, and since then I've heard whispers. Questions about whether she earned her position or whether she received special treatment due to a personal relationship with me. Maya felt like she might be sick. What was he doing? Why was he bringing this up in front of the entire company? I want to set the record straight, Ethan continued. Maya did not get her job because of any personal relationship. She got it because 7 years ago, when I was nobody, she gave me advice that changed the entire trajectory of this company. She didn't know who I was. She didn't want anything from me. She just cared enough about a stranger's idea to help him make it better. The room was completely silent now. Maya could feel hundreds of eyes on her. When I found her again after our acquisition of her company, I reviewed her entire portfolio of work, every campaign she'd ever designed, every strategy she'd implemented. And what I found was someone who consistently delivered results through genuine understanding of customers and markets. Someone who embodied the exact philosophy she'd taught me years ago, about listening, about caring, about putting people first. Ethan pulled up a screen behind him and Maya's work appeared, metrics, results, client testimonials. He went through each project methodically, showing how she'd increased engagement, improved sales, turned around failing products. The data was irrefutable. Since joining our team 4 months ago, Ethan continued, Maya has brought in 3 major clients, increased our social media engagement by 47%, and developed a marketing strategy that's projected to increase our quarterly revenue by 22%. These aren't opinions. These are measurable facts. Maya watched as Victoria's smug expression slowly faded, as Robert shifted uncomfortably in his seat, as the entire room began to understand what Ethan was doing. But here's what I really want to address, Ethan said, and his voice softened slightly. The accusation that personal feelings influenced my business decision. And to that I'll say this. Yes, I have personal feelings for Maya. I have since the day she helped me 7 years ago, even though I didn't see her again until recently. But those feelings didn't get her this job. Her talent did. Her work ethic did. Her results did. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Did Ethan just admit in front of the entire company that he had feelings for her? However, Ethan continued, I understand how the situation looks. I understand that perception matters, especially in leadership. So I've made a decision, effective immediately. Maya will no longer report directly to me. She'll be reporting to our COO, and all of her performance reviews and compensation decisions will be handled through proper HR channels with complete documentation and oversight. This ensures that there can be no question about fairness or favoritism. Maya felt a mix of relief and something else she couldn't quite name. This was good. This protected both of them. But it also felt like a loss somehow. Furthermore, Ethan said, I've asked our board to conduct an independent review of Maya's hiring and performance. They've agreed, and the results will be shared with the executive team. If that review finds that I made a poor business decision, I'll take full responsibility, but I don't believe it will, because Maya earned her place here and the numbers prove it. When the meeting ended, Maya didn't know what to do. People were looking at her differently now, not with suspicion, but with something like respect. Victoria left without making eye contact. Robert actually nodded at her as he passed. Maya waited until most people had cleared out, then made her way to Ethan's office. He was standing by the window again, and he turned when he heard her enter. You didn't have to do that, Maya said quietly. Yes, I did. You deserve better than whispers and doubts. You told the entire company you have feelings for me. Ethan smiled, a real genuine smile. I did, is that okay? Maya crossed the room until she was standing right in front of him. You also just made it impossible for us to date without it being a massive HR nightmare. I made it complicated, Ethan corrected. Not impossible. The new reporting structure means we can have a personal relationship without any conflict of interest. We'll just have to be professional about it, document everything, maintain boundaries at work, make sure no one can ever question your success. That's a lot of rules, Maya said, but she was smiling now too. You're the one who wanted complete honesty and transparency, Ethan reminded her. This is what that looks like. So what happens now? Maya asked. Now you keep being brilliant at your job. You prove once and for all that you earned every bit of your success. And outside of work, if you want, we figure out what this thing between us actually is. Maya thought about everything that had happened. The accidental Zoom meeting, the job offer, the revelation about their past, the struggles and doubts and complications. It had been messy and imperfect and sometimes painful, but it had also been real. I want that, Maya said, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise that you'll never make me choose between my career and whatever this is with us. Promise that if it ever comes down to it, we'll find a way to protect both. Ethan reached out and took her hand, the same way he had that night at the restaurant. I promise. Your career is yours. I helped open a door, but you're the one who walked through it and proved you belonged. Nothing and no one, including me, is going to take that away from you. 3 months later, Maya sat in a board meeting presenting the quarterly results. The independent review had come back overwhelmingly positive, validating not just her hiring but her performance. Victoria had actually apologized, admitting that she'd been threatened by Maya's success and had let jealousy cloud her judgment. Robert had started asking Maya for advice on his own projects, but the best part was this. When people talked about Maya now, they didn't talk about how she got her job. They talked about the innovative campaigns she was creating, the results she was delivering, the way she was changing the culture of the entire marketing division. After the meeting, as Maya was packing up her materials, she got a text from Ethan. Dinner tonight? Giuseppe's at 7? Maya smiled and typed back. Only if you promise not to critique my presentation over pasta. No promises, but I'll make up for it with dessert. As Maya left the boardroom, she thought about that morning 4 months ago when she'd accidentally clicked the wrong Zoom link. At the time, it had seemed like the worst mistake of her life. But now she understood that sometimes the wrong door leads you exactly where you're meant to be. She'd built a career she was proud of. She'd proven herself to people who doubted her. She'd found someone who challenged her and supported her and believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. And she'd learned that success isn't about avoiding complications or playing it safe. It's about showing up, doing the work, and being brave enough to take chances on yourself. Maya pulled out her phone and opened her calendar. There, scheduled for next week, was a meeting titled Company-Wide Innovation Strategy. She clicked on the Zoom link to test it, just to make sure. This time, she was joining exactly the right meeting. And she was exactly where she belonged. The end of their story was really just the beginning, because Maya had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the best things in life start with an accident. You just have to be brave enough to stay when someone says, I was waiting for you.